This conference will now be recorded.
So good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. What are you doing? You taking my presentation? No. So this is the second meeting with our villa owners. This meeting is for Clubhouse villa owners. And I want to clarify, if you are a single family home within Clubhouse, this does not apply to you. Do we have any single family homeowners in here? We had one at the last meeting. They sat through the whole thing and didn't understand. So I wanted to make sure that we clarified that. A few housekeeping things for our meeting today. If you wish to speak, you must be a Clubhouse resident for this meeting. If you're here and you're not a Clubhouse villa owner, your time to speak would be at your individual villa neighborhood meeting. We are asking that all villa owners sign in at the table and pick the paperwork up. We are asking, if you are recording this meeting, that you announce that to us in advance. We're going to hold all questions until we get through our very brief presentation to you, which we intend to make 15 minutes or less, and I'm going to move some of us along so that we make sure that we get to hear the feedback from all of you. We will pass the microphone around and ask for your feedback on the two options that are presented and answer any questions that you may have. It looks like the size of this group does not indicate that we necessarily have to limit you to 3 minutes, but please be respectful to not monopolize the microphone and make sure that we allow all of the villa owners from Clubhouse the opportunity to speak. Now, as far as the handouts that were in the back of the room, there is the actual leveling of the bids spreadsheet. We also have some villa group advisory guidelines that the board of directors intends to approve at their October 27th board meeting. And this is just referring to how you become a villa rep, and that there's going to be a time period if you wish to apply, and there'll be an actual election, and we intend to have that meeting in December to elect villa reps for each of the villa neighborhoods. And I'd like to also start out by having the folks at the table here introduce themselves, and then we'll introduce the folks in the audience that are board members as well. So go ahead.
I'm Kathleen Mundy, and I'm the Clubhouse Villa Rep.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Teresa Gaudet, and I'm the CFO here at Sun City Anthem.
And I'm Sandy Sutton. I'm the COO.
Hi, I'm Wendy Linnell. I'm the liaison to the villas.
I'm Barry Rubinson. I'm the backup liaison to the villas.
I'm Laurie Foss. I'm the Facilities and Landscape Manager.
And I'm Sean Evans, the Facilities Director for Sun City Anthem.
So we have two of your board members up here. The other four board members, President Steve Anderson is here, Dave Meredith, Paul Perlstein, and Greg Swenson are here. I'm also acknowledging that it looks like we have 3 individuals online. If you wish to comment, please, after the presentation, just send us a message in the chat section and we will unmute you and allow you to talk at the appropriate time. And so with that, I'm going to turn the PowerPoint over after Karis pulls it up for us to Teresa.
So we're going to go over the Villa Neighborhood Turf Removal and Smart Water Landscape Renovation Project for Clubhouse. So where we stand today is we've received and leveled the bids. We had sent out to approximately 10 or 11 different contractors a request to quote. We received back information from 5. One we didn't even consider because they didn't provide all the information that was requested and they didn't answer follow-up questions. And their bid was so far outside of the range of everybody else's that it really wasn't a good bid. 6 contractors didn't respond at all. It's our understanding that they're either not interested in the work or that they're already busy doing other projects. So what it came down to was 3 vendors that were had viable, real detailed bids that we knew we were getting quotes on what we were doing. And one of the quotes was just to do the tree work. So in the slide presentation today, we're only going to refer to 2 contractors, and that's Sun State Companies and XL Development, because they're both relatively in the same price range. The other one, Brightview, was significantly more that we figured that we wouldn't move forward with them whenever the project went. So you can get a copy of the level bid spreadsheet either in the back of the room or it's also available on the website. Not only is Clubhouse is there, but all of the other neighborhoods bid leveling is there as well. So what we have here, so that you wouldn't have an eye chart and have to try to read very small print, we just put the total of the contractor level bids. But again, what you'll find in the handout and on the website is a detail breaking out, you know, what the grading work was going to cost, the landscaping, the planting, the irrigation, and any other miscellaneous things that they charge for, like dumpsters and cleanup and mobilization, so on and so forth. But this is just a summary, and it only includes the 2 contractors that were relatively in the same price range. And so the first line has the contractor level bids, and you could see Sun State for the whole project at Clubhouse is about $308,000, and XL Landscape is $352,000. Any project that we do here at the association, we include a 10% contingency because when you're digging up and redoing things, you don't know what you don't know. So with the 10%, it changes it to 339 and 387 respectively. If you divide that by the 32 homes, it's approximately 10,600 and 12,100. So those were the 2 quotes that are viable and were the closest. So what we've been asked to present to you today are the following 2 funding options. One option is to collect the assessments in 60 days and move forward with the project. And the other option is to collect the assessment in installments over the next 24 months. And we'll go into the pros and cons of doing the different options here. But one of the points that I want to make, just so that it's clear, it's not like individuals get to choose whether they want option 1 or option 2. It's everybody will fall under the same option that the board decides to move forward with. So for option one, we don't necessarily have them all here, but we tried to list some of the pros and cons. The pros of doing option one, collecting it within 60 days and then starting the project as soon as possible, is there's possible rebate money available from Southern Nevada Water Authority and possibly the city of Henderson as well. And if and when those rebates are received, 100% of them goes back into Clubhouse's reserve fund. It doesn't go anywhere else but there.
Teresa, can we talk for a second about, there's been some comments, why not get the rebate and apply it towards the cost of the project?
Yes, so the issue there is we have to have the funds available to pay the contractor in order for them to do the work. Rebates are not available until after the project is 100% complete, and then either SNWA or the city of Henderson then have to come on site, do an inspection, the paperwork has to be filed. So those funds aren't available, you know, best case 3 to 6 months after the project is completed. So another pro is the reduced water consumption, because with the right type of landscaping, we'll be using less water. It's also the availability of the contractors. The longer out we postpone the project, the more the needs of all will be trying to go for that limited pool of contractors. Also, we want to avoid any future increases to perform the work. Unfortunately, with the way inflation is now and appears to be in the immediate future, is that it's going to cost more money. Also, the dying and diseased trees will be removed, and then we would avoid further root damage to the sidewalks. The cons are that you have to make a lump sum payment in a short amount of time versus installments over a longer period of time, and you lose the grass and trees sooner than you would if you extended the time period.
And so before you go to option two, Larry's going to take 1 minute, Larry, and talk about the trees, talk about the disease and dying trees that are being removed and trees that would be replaced.
Okay, at Clubhouse, you have 139 trees. We are planning with the tree arborist and the report that was run to remove 79 trees. That will leave 60 left. Those are the healthy ones that will survive the transition to desert landscape. We're planning to add 128 more trees to the 60. So you'll actually, when the project's done, you'll get a 29, almost 30 trees more than you have existing right now. The right species, the right variety, and planted in the right areas. So you won't have a tree loss, you'll actually have a tree gain in the total project.
Okay, do you want to move on to option two?
Sure. So with option two, it's really almost the inverse of what we said in option one. The con there becomes the pro and the pro becomes the con. With option two, installment payments versus a lump sum, you have a longer time to make the payments, and you can keep the grass and trees longer. The cons are the rebate money may not be available. Inflation, increased costs for labor and materials. The trees and plants will continue to die, and we'll have to deal with those as a separate project as opposed to part of the overall project. There will be possibly continued root damage to the sidewalk and the slabs. The rising water costs and the consumption level will stay where it is rather than being reduced. And then there's a concern about the availability of the contractors.
Wendy and Barry, did you have anything that you wanted to add to our comments before we?
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
Okay, we are going to go around. Doris has got the microphone, and we are going to ask anyone who is in Clubhouse if they wish to comment and provide feedback on either one of those options. If they have questions or other comments, the board is here to listen.
We encourage your comments, please.
I just would like to say that we've been going back and forth for quite some time already. We've covered every options. We've heard everybody's thoughts about the project, everybody's ideas. And I'm all for moving on, moving forward and getting this done and putting it behind us. It's a big chunk of money, yes. It's not easy to come up with. I know some people are going to have a harder time coming up with the money, but the bottom line is that it's not going to go away. It has to be done, whether we do it now or later, and I'm all for doing it now. I like option A, get it done, get it paid for. It was very plain to see that the pros and the cons with the A and the B, that's why I would go with A and just move forward already. I'm just tired of the back and forth. Want to get it done and move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions. 10% contingency fee. Larry, do you anticipate many change orders, or is a landscape architect going to be brought in? Or, I mean, what do you anticipate in way of contingencies out of the ordinary? Anything?
When you're talking about digging in people's front yards, backyards, even when you call for dig, there are always circumstances that show up and happen. So anything can happen on these jobs. Even on the east lawn, we had some issues that came up that the contingency was brought in to help cover some of those costs that no one could see and such. So, but yes, I would foresee problems on this project as we move forward.
Is there going to be additional charges? For example, is a desert landscape architect, are they going to be brought in and we're going to have to pay for that?
What we did originally was we looked, and we have a contractor right now, landscape architect, Mike Duran with SMP, that's doing our projects. The original estimates for the villas turned out to be almost $55,000 to get a full set of construction drawings done. We were able to negotiate that down to $5,000 for the villas. So we'll have conceptual drawings, and we'll work with the contractor, not with the architect, as we move forward to make sure this project, ends successfully.
John, I know you're John, but there's a couple of people who are saying, who are you? So can you state your name, please?
John Mugen. I presumed you folks unfortunately know me.
We love you, John.
I'm sorry, Barry.
We love you, John.
Yeah. That's what my wife says too. I'm not trying to.
So John, I just want to make sure you know we're not doing the 3 minutes. I want to make sure we get through every single person. So
that's it has to be reasonable, and I'm moving along as fast as possible. And I can talk to Larry about this afterwards. I don't understand when you send out requests for bids, there should be specifics, and the bids come back 79 trees, 85 trees, 496 ton, 330 ton, 268. I don't understand that, but Larry and I can talk about that later.
So we do have more specifics, but we got to limit what information we put here. The type of plants and trees that they're using are detailed in their quotes.
Okay. Just a minute. I'm afraid I'm just warming up.
So
no.
John, I'm going to give you right now, it's 10:47. I'm going to give you to 10:51. That's about 6 or 7 minutes. We're going to move through everybody and we'll come back to you. Happy to do that, but I want to make sure.
What if
every
it's
single person.
What if it's the end of the meeting when you come back to me? Can I continue to talk?
You're going to get a chance to talk after we go through everyone, but we're not going to run.
Can I talk as long as I want?
You're wasting, let's get to the questions right now. We're not going to cut anybody off. We're not going to cut anybody off, but every person in the room gets to talk, and I want to make sure. So.
Okay. I'll take you at your word.
Yeah, no, we're going to come back for sure. Is there any? Oh, you do?
My name is Joe, and one of the questions I have in this payment is that are we able to pay with a credit card to at least get some benefits back from that?
Well, you can pay with a credit card. However, the bank accepting the credit card is going to charge you a 5% fee. So the benefits that you get back from it are not going to be worth the 5% fee that you're going to have to pay.
Hey, Bill Mackey, 1944. I noticed I've lived here off and on for about 20, ever since they started. And the one park that I know of, the way I can send my grandkids to play is the dog park. Is there any other park around here? Because my backyard is very useful. My grandkids come, I play football back there and things like that. And you're calling my backyard unessential turf. It's not, it's essential. What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I'm not going to go to the dog park and play football with my grandkids. Did you ever think about that? Well, what'd you do about it? I mean,
So
do you care?
A couple things is I don't want to hear that the association doesn't care, that we do care. That's why we're wait a minute, that's why we're meeting with you, and we'll let you have the microphone next. But
Okay, go ahead.
the definition of non-essential turf is not a definition that we made up. And it is true that Southern Nevada Water Authority, after they got pushback from homeowner associations, has said that the rear yards don't have to come out.
Yeah,
They've said that. The front, hang on, you get the microphone. The board has asked us to present options today. That's why we're here having feedback from you.
Well, the main thing, I just want to let you know, if you take my grass away, my kids, I'm not going to play football on the rocks. That's for darn sure. And I'm just hoping you all think about those kind of things because it's very useful to me. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
We
Hang on, Doris.
initially, as Sandy said, the removal of the front side and back was mandated. And the SNWA board, and I happened to see a SNWA board member at a club meeting I went to. He was there to discuss another topic altogether, but believe me, the topic du jour was the villas and the removal of turf. And the board heard you all. So they backed off of mandating the back come out to strongly recommending that it come out. And it may still be mandated even yet as the Colorado River contract requires us to save even more water. And residents in the state take up over 60% of the water usage, whereas the strip hotels take up less than 5%. So everybody has to pull their weight, but it's kind of per the percentage. So I know you think it's essential, but but there are parks. There's parks all over here. Well, there are parks within reasonable distance, but we could talk about that offline. I understand, sir.
I'm just hoping that you all consider that when you went to the backyard. That's all we got left for our kids to drink. You take that away, I'm not going to take over there downtown Sunset.
Okay.
So
I hear you.
So we have a comment online that just says, for the record, we support option 1. Thank you. The Stanikas. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. All right, Doris.
Okay. You keep talking about inflation, or Teresa. We are not having inflation. We're having a recession. So all the bowl that you throw us and you divided all of the villas for this villa and clubhouse and Mesa. Why can't we all be together and discuss? But you guys decided everything. We never got a vote. We never got anything in the mail as an individual homeowner if we want to keep the backyard. You guys have decided that. The guy that was here in the last meeting, the water guy, he said, we do not have to remove our backyard. So just that 7 of you decided that you guys are going to take our backyard away. The grass cools our house 30%. We have little bunnies and pheasants and all that crap in the back of our house. You guys don't care, the birds, the trees, how pretty it is to go to a zero landscape. It's bad enough we have to do it in the front. We see the beautiful gym, how nice that looks. And you guys are going to take our backyards away from us. And you bully us. you all talk and then you let some gentleman has something valid to say to help the villa owners. You don't want to hear him because you guys have decided everything for all of us. I thank you for nothing and making so many of us so miserable.
Anybody else in this row that needs to want to make a comment? Would anybody on this side of the room like to make a comment? Oh, on the end. One more before you, John. Oh, you were calling for John? Okay. Oh.
Hi, I am Dave Castellini at 2722 Grand Forks Road. My purpose of being here and speaking with you today is very straightforward. It is to summarize not only my contentions, but the majority of the villa owners who are impacted by your proposal. Okay? First of all, I want to commend the board for attempting to address this water conservation issue. Secondly, we vehemently oppose the proposed project as it's currently designed, which is riddled with errors, omissions, and it's totally incomplete, evidenced by your sophomoric spreadsheet, which is non-discriminate. It's full of errors. For instance, there are 30 villas in Clubhouse, not 32. Okay? There are 30 villas in Clubhouse.
So you're not counting the 2 homes that are in model village that are in Clubhouse per the established documents.
John will explain why there's 30 and not 32 like you.
32 is better because then we pay less. We pay less.
You're not going to pay. Third, I'm afraid that the board has lost sight of your mission and purpose, inclusive of all the economic factors. That's a very sad event. What that results in, your constituencies, who are us, the property owners and the paying members of the HOA, entrusted the board to fulfill professionally and accurately all the requisite duties and responsibilities required by an HOA. The bottom line of that is you, the board, has lost that trust that was entrusted in you. That's a major issue. What that results in is fear, uncertainty, and distrust. Not good, okay? How do I know that this project is not going to work? It's because I am an existing and decades-long, very productive CEO who has dealt with these kinds of issues and projects for decades. And what happens is, by using metrics, facts, not opinions, we get very accurate at determining the outcome of any given project. I can tell you that my assessment of this project as it's proposed is doomed to failure. Failure equates to money and more distrust, not something you want to be happening. Remember, you, the board, the directors on the board are duly elected, uncompensated, to perform professionally and accurately. Plus, you have a hired and very well compensated management leader named the Chief Operating Officer. It is her responsibility to manage appropriately. I'm going to give you some very sage advice. First, table this proposal. Second, hire a reputable and comprehensive consulting firm to perform an empirical engineering assessment with results and recommendations. That's step one. Step two is to perform minimum three, hopefully 4 proposals to fulfill the solutions that you're seeking. The solution, which is not well addressed at all, to the goal, which is reducing the water usage. I mean, how hard is this to figure out? And we do not see any attempt at conclusive metrics, actual numbers of what that reduction will be. You can use percentages, gallons, I don't care, but it's not addressed. Third issue that's a glaring omission is the irrigation, which is the original goal. Fine, you take out all the supposed turf, which I can get into, and replace it with plants. I don't see anything about a contractor's guarantee of life of the plants, replacement of the plants that die, replacement of the irrigation and what kind and how and why. And the list goes on and on and on. And then the most important, that's the major, because that's your goal, is you can delay the actual implementation of a given, whatever the choice of the 3 solutions are, 3 or 4 solutions, for years. Remember, it's not legally compliant for years. So we have a hard time understanding why you're in a big rush to get this done. And that's all I've got to say. That's the summary. You've heard many of the homeowners comment, and trust me, we have done tremendous legal research, tremendous empirical research, and came to these conclusions not by emotion, but by facts. Thank you.
This one gentleman first, and then back to Jeff.
My name is Mike Santo. I'm a new resident, 2714. I'm totally against the project that is it's written. I'll agree that the front and side yards should be removed, deceased trees removed and everything else. I don't like either option, A or B, or I can't understand why you can't start the project if the people who want to pay in 60 days pay you and the others pay over 24 months. I mean, I'm willing to pay the 24 months if it becomes necessary. 60 days, I'm totally against that. Otherwise, I also found or heard a word that as we make this assessment, does that also include pay raises for paid board members? Is there someone's going to get a raise out of this, or are you going to hire new people? This is the things that are going around with these assessments. I don't know if they're true or not. Maybe you could expand on that a little bit. But otherwise, I'm totally against the project as it's written. So, and that's all I have to say at this time.
We're good?
Yeah, I'd like to answer that last question. This is our pay. We get one of these every meeting. that we have to meet. All right. Pretty expensive. Yeah. This used to be 50 a quarter. I think it's now $1. I don't know what it's worth. All right. But that's our entire pay. For that pay, we sit here on every single topic. Okay. And have to adjudicate because always half the community here is opposed to whatever, and half, so sometimes it's not half, but there's always somebody who's opposed to what you're doing. All right. So the second thing was, my previous job here was as the chairman of the Facilities and Landscaping Committee. Okay. That group, since Sandy took over, did that stuff outside of this building here. All right. And in fact, learned how to do it, worked with the designers, made sure the contracts were good. And by the way, those contracts do include things like, oh, this plant died early. You gave us a guarantee of this, you replace it. Right, Larry? You haven't seen the actual contract proposals yet because we haven't worked with a contract on them yet. All right. We got a bid. That's what this stage of the project is. All right. So if you think that's nice out there, that's as nice as it's going to get with a desert landscape. All right. It's beautiful when it blooms. It's beautiful almost year round. Okay. It uses very little water. How many million gallons have we saved now, Larry? With that and fixing the electronics and the controllers?
Currently, we're nearing 120 million gallons of water saved in almost 4 years.
So we know what we're doing in this. We've designed this. We've done 4 or 5 areas now here. All right. And we always bring in an outside consultant to look at things. For the thing on the East Lawn, we have to bring in engineers because the hill slope is a little high. All right. All this nonsense about you guys are not taking care of this thing. You're just throwing it together. This thing hasn't been thrown together. All right. And by the way, why are we doing it now and not before, not later? Really simple. Our goal so far, and we have not voted on this yet, all right, was to get it for the cheapest amount of money for the whole project it would ever be. And if anybody tells me that it's going to cost less in 5 years when there are all the remaining people who've been putting it off for 5 years want those contractors, doesn't understand the law of supply and demand. All right. Secondly, inflation. Thirdly, the cost of the objects. I went to redo some trees on my thing. It was the 15th tree type I asked for that they could actually get. All right. So that we have a possible set of bidders here and we're looking at the lowest possible cost for this entire villa complex. All right. It will never be this cheap again. So the more we defer, even the 2-year option, there's going to be more money required. All right. You're hoping for a miracle, a literal economic miracle that those numbers will go down. No, the part of the backyard that you as a person own, we're not touching. The part of the backyard that is the limited common area, that is the question you're asking. Okay. We've heard you.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for putting up with all of this for a bottle of water. I do appreciate it. However, I'm still against the project.
I didn't think I'd change your mind.
Well, like I told Larry before, he ought to renegotiate his contract and be paid based on the number of gallons of water he saves. And I told him I'd negotiate that for him. But anyway, and I hope you don't have to report the water bottles as taxable income. Couple quick questions. And Trish, you said something, and I'm not sure I understood you right. You said option 1 and option 2, and then I wrote down board makes decision. Are you saying the board is giving us these, but they're going to choose the option? Is that right? Or maybe Sandy? I mean, whomever.
I can answer that. It is very clear in the documents that exist that the board has the final say. However, as you will read in the advisory guidelines that we've written to say what the representatives' roles are and how to have an election and all of that, it's that we strongly encourage and welcome your input, but the board has the final decision-making authority by the documents.
So if I'm understanding you right, Wendy, if 32 of the villas or whatever number they are say we want option 2, in essence, the board can ignore that. They can say, no, we're going to do it in 60 days.
In essence, we could ignore that.
So it's really not a choice of ours.
Well, okay. I'm willing to engage with you for a minute or so, John. We do very much care about, what this means for the villas. And I'll be very candid. In the 34 years I've been in this industry, 34 years, this is the most challenging, the most problematic, the most difficult decision I'm asked to make as a board member or when I was a manager in Sandy's position to bring to the homeowners. It's very, very difficult. And it comes from a number of factors. One, this issue has been addressed and talked about in the villas since 2011. And let's get this done. And it was never done because a 15 or 20% assessment increase for the villas was not wanted by the villas. They were as adamant against not having that as you are now about not doing this project. And the board capitulated, and the boards year after year after year kicked the issue down the road until 2018, when the board at that time passed a policy that we will go to Xeriscape as an association, including all common areas and limited common elements. No board since then has rescinded that. And as we've discussed today, we've done a number of projects already in the common areas. We haven't done anything in the neighborhood limited common elements yet. If this had been done for 10 years and your reserves had been funded better, and there wasn't a time when it was considered overfunded and residents got $1,500 back, woulda, coulda, shoulda, hindsight is always 2020. But now we're faced with something that I've been working on for 3 years with your villa reps and at the meetings that we've had with you homeowners discussing a landscape renovation. And it's time to really decide to do it or not. And it is problematic that, one of the options is, pay it within 60 days and let's do this. As many people have said, they've called me, they've emailed, I have an envelope here full of comments. Oh, sorry, full of comments. And yes, some are as adamant as John, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name, sir. Dave, as adamant as other people are. Please, please, please rip the Band-Aid off. Let's do this now while we know what the price is, because in 2 or 3 years we don't. And I look at it as my fiduciary duty as a board member to not kick this can down the road again. So, but that doesn't mean I'm not listening to what you all want. And maybe there is some magical hybrid kind of solution we can come up with. The board puts their head together and we try to do this. We do hear you. We do care. I wouldn't be on the board of directors if I didn't care. and I didn't want to be here because I work full-time for this board for free, 40 hours a week, some weeks more. So I'm sorry that you feel like we don't care, because we do.
I'm not being critical of you, Wendy, at all, but that's one of my big pet peeves, is you limit people to talk to 2 or 3 minutes, but the board or anybody on that panel can talk as long as they want.
John, talk.
Okay,
Go.
thank you.
We only did this, John, because we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance
That's
to talk.
fine, I
Now you
understand.
have the floor, please.
I
please
understand.
proceed.
You didn't shorten my this guy, but you shortened me. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, and that's petty. And let's move on. Wendy, you said, not at this meeting, but at the last meeting, that this has nothing to do with the law. This is about being good citizens and saving water shortage.
It's a whole xeriscape project that has been discussed in the villa since 2011.
I will quote you exactly. You said this has nothing to do with the law. That's exactly what you said.
I didn't say that.
Well, we'll play the tape
I said that
back.
it's an ingredient, and we did have to slow down and take a deep breath to see how the law would impact the project that was being planned.
Okay, this is all on tape, and we'll go back when this is over and go through it. But
If I said that, I'm sure I followed it up with what I just said.
Well,
All right.
anyway.
And let's not argue about that.
John, can I make a comment real fast?
Certainly.
Real short. Sorry.
Certainly.
I'll keep to far less than 3 minutes.
Certainly, you're a board
Okay.
member, I'm not.
All right. Yeah, right. The reality of this is the thing that triggered this. Yes, we've been planning this for a long time. All right. But it wasn't in the works for this year. Okay. There was you guys did not have enough reserves to do this project. Okay. The law was the trigger. All right. And then our goal was, how can we do this the cheapest? Because it will impact people tremendously. Okay. And the answer is then inflation hit. And we talked to contractors and found too many were already being signed up. All right. And we realized that this is the cheapest time to do it. Every option, even the 2-year option, is more. So that was our rationale. But the reason we're holding these meetings, one villa at a time, each person gets a few minutes at least to talk, was we want to get feedback from everybody, not just the loudest voice in the room. Okay, now, I'm not arguing that you're the loudest voice in the room, by the way, John, but we see this in virtually everything we have to bring up. All right. And that's why we said we'll hand the mic around, get everybody to say something. We have not yet decided what we're going to vote on. All right. We presented 2 options to see if more time would help with the monetary thing for people to raise money. Okay. That was the reason those 2 options are up there right now. Thank you.
I'm going to try and shorten this up. My wife says I talk too much, and that's fine. At the June 1st meeting, which a number of people in the 2 main groups opposed to this in Mountain View and in Clubhouse, who've kind of combined forces, we've been through that June 1st tape several times. And I want to quote something to you and be patient with me. The first speaker, the very first speaker, who is a villa rep, says grass and tree removal at this point is no longer optional for villa owners. The HOA is not doing this to us. There's a Nevada state law in response to the water crisis in our region. The second speaker was Larry. He said, and these are exact quotes, turf must be removed around villas. Trees all have to go. To bare earth, start over. Trees not going to survive. For every X amount of grass you remove, you lose a limb. Sandy, turf must be removed surrounding villas, and turned to Larry and had him reconfirm that. We have found out that that's not true. Under the law, according to the Southern Nevada Water Authority, who is the one who makes the decision what non-functional turf is, all you have to do is remove the front yards. And people have expressed that at other meetings, and it's obviously a done deal. You are going to remove the backyards, the front yards, the trees, the landscaping, even though you don't have to do that. And even if you do, you don't have to do it now. You've got 4+ years to do this. And it just blows my mind that you've just glossed over that. You know, you've made that decision, apparently.
Hey,
That's
John,
going to be the scope.
John, just real quick. We had 2 meetings. We had a meeting in June, and then we had a subsequent meeting where the Southern Nevada Water Authority was there. And I think that date was maybe July 2nd, right in there. 7th. In between our June meeting and that July meeting is when the Southern Nevada Water Authority got the pushback from the villas. And you're 100% correct. They changed their tune and said the rear yards do not have to come out. We acknowledged that.
Okay.
And they put that in writing to us, and he actually spoke to that at that July meeting.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and so nobody's disagreeing with you. All we really have to do is remove the side yards and the front yards and redo those areas, and you could leave the backyard exactly as it is.
But they are still, and when I saw the SNWA director at a club meeting and talked to him afterwards, and Joyce, one of your villa neighbors, was there with me, and we were talking to him. He said, we still, and we have it in writing here, strongly recommend, they say strongly, to remove the back.
Right.
Strongly. Now, that's not the M word. That's not a mandate. You're absolutely right. But we are listening to that because, as Barry said earlier, that mandate is coming back around again, especially with what the federal government has told us about the water.
Okay, I can only talk from what I was told. I have no personal knowledge of this. Number one, I've talked to Mr. Davis and the Water Authority numerous times. And when I brought that up to them, they laughed and they said, we have not insisted on the backyards being out since day one. That's what I was told. That's what I was told. Number two, I asked point blank, are you going to come back for our backyards? And I was told, no. Once we reach January 1 of 2027 and the city is complete and the grass is removed, we are going to be in great shape. Doesn't make any difference what California does about water.
Okay, just a minute. Larry, can you speak to that? Because you are on the advisory group, and it took a while. Explain how it took a while to decide it was mandated.
Larry, you don't have to do that. We've been through that before, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm saying this is what I was told. I have no personal knowledge of it. I know I've been told by you and other people there was a pushback and they changed. But all I'm saying is I got a different story.
Well, the SNWA rep who was here said that it was mandated and then it was changed.
He said that at the July meeting.
He said that at the July meeting.
He also said that the Southern Nevada Water Authority loves trees. They love the shade and they don't want you to take out the trees. But you ignore that, but you emphasize that they did say, and you're right, they did say, you know, you don't have to take out the backyards, but we strongly encourage you to do that. So we're kind of picking and choosing here.
No, I don't think so. As far as the trees go, there's been many, many discussions in the industry and many, many classes for managers and for board members about the symbiotic relationship between grass and trees. That's one of the warnings, is you can't take out grass without affecting certain trees, and in our case, a lot of them. Larry can speak to that in more detail, but sounds like you don't want to hear that again.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. You're talking about a total, if you take out all the grass, you're talking a total of 40,309 square feet. That's less than 1/3 of a football field, and you're insisting on taking all this out. I just, it just doesn't make sense to me. And how anyone can say, in all due respect, Barry, how anyone can say what prices are going to be in 2 years, you can't. But you're saying with almost certitude that they're going to be up. And I did a bunch of research, and I'm not going to read it all, but here is a survey of analysis economists fund members say they believe that by 2024, inflation will be crushed and sunk close to the federal 2% target. Representatives of the International Monetary Fund expect the U.S. inflation rate to reach its 2% target by the end of 2023. Market realist, in 2023, inflation should come down sharp. I can go on and on and on. And you've got 4 years here. And Chairman Powell and members have said just recently at the Jackson Hole, #1 priority is to crush inflation. We're going to crush inflation. Of course, it's going to be painful. You're going to ruin the economy and you're going to have employment, but we're going to crush inflation. And these are experts. And Powell said, once it's crushed, we'll experience higher unemployment and a sputtering economy, but general cost of living, prices, et cetera, will return to normal. You've got over 4 years to do this project, and it's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot. But when somebody tells me what they can guarantee that prices are going to be higher, it's like the attorney guaranteeing what a judge is going to say. I've spent at least 1 day a week for 40 years in a courtroom, and I have never told a client, this is what the judge is going to do, because nobody knows. And economics is the same way. Nobody knows what things are going to be.
Nobody knows more about the statistical stuff than I do in the room. And I'm telling you, it's statistical. Statistics sometimes come true. Batting average. This guy's the home run leader. Yet at the World Series, he doesn't hit a ball. All right. We know that happens all the time. All right. What I'm saying to you is, before I came to this meeting, I went to 10 of the best sources for good data. People who are non-political, they're not working for this administration, they're not working for the Republicans, okay? They are the professors from all various walks of beliefs. There are many different economic theories, okay? And the best number I got, now I don't know where you got the 1 or 2%, but was 5 to 6% by the end of next year, all right? And that's based on spending and printing money as much as anything else. And we're printing a hell of a lot of money right now without anything backing it.
Well, I don't want to get into politics, but we're going to have an election in less than 20 some days, and that could change. And we're going to have a major election in 2 years that could change the oil situation.
Right, everything could change. Okay.
So these wild statements and these overgeneralizations.
The statement, John, was that the risk is whatever it raises now, if it goes up 10% between now and when it starts falling, is still going to be built into that cost. It'll be 10% more than the number we gave you. All I said was the chances there's a very high chance of the number we give you being low, this number being low, and it will be higher. I did not say it will be double. I did not say it will be 2% higher. I said it will be higher, just because by the time the thing turns around, and the average number, by the way, is 27 months for an inflationary period here, better known as a bear market. All right. And that's it.
But
All
the-
right. And we're not 27 months into it.
Excuse me,
May I, John?
let me just interrupt just a second, Wendy, if you please bear with me. The average duration of a recession from 1854 to 2020 in this country is 17 months. And from 1950 to current day, it's 10 months. A bear market, the average of a bear market is 289 days. And we're
Okay.
talking 4+ years.
John,
we have.
I understand you're talking about inflation, but it's not just inflation here that we're looking at. I'm concerned about supply and demand. We sent RFPs out to 11 or 10 or 11, and some came back and said, no, we can't bid because we're already booked 2 years out. In the HOA landscape industry, there is going to be a supply and demand issue. Set aside a possible recession, set aside inflation, there is going to be supply and demand. And we've also heard from the landscape companies, not all of them, but some of them, they want to keep their employees and not let them go. So that means they're going to have to pay them, and I just believe that we have to be cognizant. It's a risk. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
is
no,
we
I
know the
agree.
numbers now. And what do you say, John, to the people who say, and there are quite a few who are saying, please do this now, please, while we know what the numbers are. What do you say to them when they say they don't want to take the risk you're willing to take?
What do you say to the people that are opposed to this project? I know various villa neighborhoods have gotten signatures of people proposed to this. What do you say to those people? Well, you're out of luck because these people want it. One other thing on inflation, and then I'm going to move
As a
on.
board member, I try to be risk averse, if at all possible, to the extent possible. That's part of my fiduciary duty is to do, SWOT analysis. What's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of anything that we consider. And it seems to me, John, that I don't want to risk the villa homeowners' pocketbooks. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I understand that.
That seems
I
unconscionable. That
understand
seems
that.
unconscionable to me.
Well, you're also risking that prices may go down. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. Wendy, you can argue this all day.
You do know what the numbers are now.
Okay, let's move on if I could.
Okay, let's do
And
that.
just one last thing. I was told by a board member that the bids that came in were 28% higher than the figures Larry had at the June 1st meeting. I was told by a board member, and the board member knows who they are. And if that's true, which I think it is, the figure came out today, the year over year inflation rate is 8.5%. That's what it says.
Really? Have you gone to the supermarket recently? Have you gone to a restaurant recently? Have you gone to a show recently? Have you bought gas recently? And you think it's only that number? Remember, politicians are giving you that number.
Well, that's probably the most truthful statement that's been made today, and I will readily agree with you on that. But theoretically, if you accept those bids and you accept those numbers, you're paying a 20% premium. Anyway, let me give this and tell myself to shut up. The point I'm making or trying to make is, if the number one priority of the Fed is to crush inflation, and if a number of experts believe inflation is going to be under control and back to normal by the end of 23, and the bids are 28% higher than the June 1st, and the year year over year, inflation's 8.5%, and you have 51 months to do that. I think a legitimate argument can be made. Why is the board insisting on doing it to the project now? An argument can be made why we're doing it.
Just point of information, John, the actual bid that you were looking at for the 28% arrived in February. We just had the meeting with you in June.
Well, those weren't bids. Those weren't bids. Those were estimates.
Well, we haven't done any actual bids. We
Well,
had
that was,
one contractor that Larry knew,
Contractors.
or whatever it was, look and see what they estimated the cost of the project was. It's not the same thing as making a bid, walking through every bit of the property, understanding everything. That's, by the way, the reason for the miscount of the trees.
So John, if I could just add one comment, right?
Sure.
It's not just inflation, it's supply and demand as
I
well.
said that.
And it's something really critical to keep in mind, because even, what's driving the 60 days is the contractors put their bids in and they will only hold them for 90 days. And we've asked, can they extend holding that bid longer? And they said the plant material is already going up. And not only is the plant material going up, they're having limited supply of what plant material they can choose from. So that's also an issue that they're taking into consideration.
I concede that point, but I also say 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, which you have time, it can dramatically change, There's no question about that. Nobody has a crystal ball and can predict the future.
I guess I just don't want to see, John, what's been happening for the last 10 years. It gets kicked down, the can gets kicked down the road, kicked down the road, kicked down the road. The money isn't assessed. And so instead of just being a 10 or 15 or 20% increase, every year or every other year for the last, for the last 10 years, now we're looking at a much obviously bigger chunk of money. And it just, I'm going to repeat myself. It just seems unconscionable to kick it down the road again. Especially you're kind of sort of recommending wait 4 years.
No, I'm not saying wait 4
Kind of,
years.
sort of.
No, I'm not. I'm saying you have 4 years, and I read my question as to why the board is doing this. I think a legitimate argument, a valid argument can be made, and a lot of people want it delayed to delay it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying wait 4 years and 2 months and try and do it in 2 weeks. I'm not saying that. I'm saying things can change and nobody can predict. And granted, it's a question of whether you want to roll the dice or not. Some people do, some people don't.
That's exactly right.
Right,
And
that's exactly
I'm
right.
glad you made the gambling analogy, because that's how I feel
Las
about it.
Vegas.
I feel like it's a real risk.
Well,
And that scares me for
It's a
you.
risk both ways. It's a risk both
Oh,
ways.
okay, fair
And I
enough.
think we're on the same page. Or just two quick things. From the June 1st meeting, here's a quote. The management and board of directors are working diligently for us and with us to effectively respond to what we are facing as villa owners. We're all in this together. And I guess my reaction honestly is, really? Really? Let me finish, Wendy. Like I said, there's a lot of people who object to the scope of the project. And evidently that's a done deal. I mean, there's no more discussion about that, even though you don't have to do all this, and there's no question about the time. It's either going to be 24 months or 60 days, and we're not making the decision. When Frosty got up and asked very respectfully if you would ask for two forms of bids when you sent out your request for bids. He said, please, ask for removal of the front lawns only so we can compare. You didn't do that.
We did do that.
Well, it's not shown. It's not shown. And the other thing is, when Frosty mistakenly said, bring it back, tell us what the bids are, et cetera, and we'll vote on it.
like that, a person on that panel said, you don't have a vote. You don't have a vote. I was just flabbergasted, you know, and you compare that to this quote. Well, we do have a vote. We do have a vote. We do have a vote. The board makes the ultimate decision, but we do have a vote. We can recall people. We can wait till the next election. There's going to be new Villa reps, I guarantee it. There's litigation, and litigation is always the last resort. Nobody wants to do that. But litigation gets real ugly, and there's going to be requests to produce documents. There's going to be depositions. I mean, how are you going to explain to an ombudsman, an arbitrator, a judge, or a jury while under oath about those June 1 meetings, false statements? They were false. They were false. The law is that you take out the front yards. You don't have to take out the trees, landscaping, backyards. And you blamed it all on the new law, and that's not truthful. I never did that. Well, I read the quote. I read the quote. And at that meeting, every one of you people were here. Every one of the board members were here except for one. And nobody corrected that statement. Nobody said a word. I suspect, well, I'm not going to say it. Never mind. If you slap a lien on a villa, you can be sued for clouding title, et cetera, et cetera. I just, what I'm asking is live up to that statement, listen to us, listen to both sides, cooperate, take into consideration that some people can't write a check, that this is going to have a tremendous effect. We've talked about, I sent you a whole list of items which the attorney blew down, and then I didn't want to take all the time arguing between two attorneys, and I asked your permission to talk to him, and I would even pay the fee, but you wouldn't even give permission for that. I mean, that's a lack of good faith and cooperation. And you can explain that to a judge or a jury. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, and I hope we do it the easy way. I gave you a bunch of options. Delay the project, hire a lobbyist for next year to clarify the law, declaratory judgments, et cetera, and you haven't done one thing, not one thing. You're going to do it your way or no way. And that makes me sad. It makes me sad as a villa owner. It really does. And I'm sorry if I'm blunt and frank, but it's time to be blunt and frank. It is Thank time you. to be blunt, and I think I was blunt back, and as adamant as you are on one side of this issue, my 34 years of experience and my concept of what my fiduciary duty is different than what you're putting across. That doesn't mean I'm not listening. That doesn't mean I can't search along with you, with my fellow board members for something. But I will tell you, as the liaison, many months ago, I said, we want to do this project. I want it to be paid for over 36 months. And I want to do it earlier so we can do it currently with the prices we know. And I want to take a loan from the main association reserves and loan it to the villas. It's one reserve fund helping another reserve fund. Absolutely not illegal. No. So everything that I wanted to do, that I wanted to make this more palatable for the people that don't want to do this all at once, or don't like the ingredient now of making it more urgent with the water crisis and the AB 366. That ingredient did make it more urgent. John, you and I, we just have a fundamental difference in looking at this. It doesn't mean I'm not listening, and I am listening. I think Steve wants to talk.
John, one of the things that I would say is that you're suggesting that the board has made a determination. And while certainly people may lean in various directions, the board really is here listening. I have spoken in terms of my feelings that personally, I'm not in favor of doing it all per se. But, you know, part of it is looking at different options. And I don't think we've come to the determination of all of the different options as board members. And that's one of the things that we wanted to come to these meetings and listen to what was being said. So it's not as if the board is a unified, you know, decision that's predestined. There's a lot of divergence in terms of what is going on in terms of our discussions.
John,
So
yeah.
just be aware of that.
John, I have not decided how I would vote yet. All right. I feel terrible about this. All right. With Wendy, I was the other person arguing we had to find some way to loan the money. You know, because that was the only other way. I'm one of the supporters of getting, we actually have the landscaping, the trees, and the whole thing separate. All right. In terms of the data of what it will cost. All right. We have not made a decision yet. All right. These happen to be two options. We wanted to see if maybe more time would make it more palatable. That was the major thing here. There are other options as terms of how much we do and things like that. But I would say if we're going to delay it 4 or 5 years, I would be in favor of you guys starting to pay up now, one little bit at a time. So there is actually money there and there's not this thing. Now the thing may be a little lower than this number, or it could be a lot higher. We don't know. But the people who want it done now, why should we put them at risk? Maybe we can at least make sure your reserve is built up enough that if we do decide, and we may or may not, to delay it, okay, and take the risk on the rear, that'll be it.
How about a compromise? Let's stay within the law. The law says the front and the side. I think most of us probably agree to that. It's the backyard that we're all complaining about. Why not just do that since that's within the law? There is no law that says you have to take out the back. I heard the money, I heard all this kind of stuff. Let's just go one step at a time, the sides and the front, and do it because that's the law. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would say that the only other thing we would have to discuss in that version is the dead and dying trees. We might not want to take out the trees that would die if we took the lawn out. We'd leave them in maybe, but that would be probably the only thing because that's our fiduciary duty to take the dead and dying trees out.
I've talked to a few people who said that do not live in the villas, that they would be interested in helping. They would be more than happy to pitch in if it would help people. And I think they averaged out like if it was $250 a household, it would take care of all this rather than just the villa owners doing it. Is that possible?
Not in a formal way, we can't do it. But if there are owners out here that want to help, I don't know exactly what that would look like, but it cannot be an association sponsored or assisted by the association. That's illegal.
So
that's what we wanted to do.
Oh, so it's just the villa owners that have this, even though it's something that should have been taken care of a long time ago.
Correct.
Okay.
We're living with that non-decision all those years.
Right.
All those years.
Yeah, and then the HOA fees, you know, it's going to come down to us now paying roughly $5,000 a year. Is that correct? Because it's $1,284 a quarter now. So right now it's $1,031, but we were told $1,284, which is just going up. And if you remove all of this, what are we paying for?
Well, you have two main drivers in your budget, utilities and your landscape contract, right? You don't have to pull it up. I mean, well, and insurance. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, on that point, because I'm all about money, what's going out, because I'm not saving a lot, you know, in my own pocketbook and bank, but fixed income, you know, it is what it is. But we went up from, and I've only been here 2 years, but we went up from 800 and roughly $90 a quarter when I first moved here in November of 2020 to 1031 January 1st of this past year. And now you're saying 1284 starting in January?
So
Is that correct?
without having the numbers.
And that's more than 20%, by the way, according to my math, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's only a 20% increase, but it depends on
So
what.
it should be around 1236.
It depends on what you're measuring it against, because if you got which you did, if you got a reduction of your dues because there was a prior year surplus, then it reduced your quarterly payment. And so you're probably just looking at the net amount. I could speak numbers off the top of my head.
That's fine. I just want,
okay, but
I lived in another HOA, another state, California, okay, for 17 years. And in 17 years, and we paid monthly dues then, but my dues never went up more than $200 in the full 17 years I was there.
So I can tell you the biggest driver to the 20% increase, it's utilities and insurance. We've been told by the insurance brokers to expect anywhere between a 15 and 25% increase in the insurance premiums. And that's if you have no claims. If you have claims, to expect more. So that increase is built in. And the same thing, if you look at the current year budget and you look at your actual utility bills compared to what was budgeted, the actual bills are significantly higher because some of the utilities have gone up 20%.
And yet I talked to a homeowner that is a single family residence in our village, not villa, but village. And they're paying $330 a quarter and they're doing their own landscaping.
Right.
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 I mean, why couldn't that be an option? Because when I talked to Larry, he came out to my house to look at a couple of things. And I asked him, God, 1031, it went up. And he goes, and really, he basically said very little had to do with agriculture and maintenance. And then yet, and he even reiterated it in the June 1st meeting when he said that maintenance is only going to, or landscape maintenance is only going to come out 4 to 6 times a year as opposed to 46 weeks a year. And yet we're going sky high on our HOA.
So to answer your question with the single family homes versus say a duplex villa neighborhood, when there is an expense, it's divided among 7,144 homes. When you're in one of the villas, we have 20, 32, 52, and 58 homes in those villas. So you have a much smaller group that you're distributing that cost. As I said, insurance is one of the largest pieces. If you have a single family home, you're paying for your own homeowner's insurance policy. You're paying for your own landscaper to come in. But you're not paying for the entire thing because right, but it's still the walls, the common area. Right.
That's another issue, but that's not for this meeting. But I had to buy a homeowner's policy this year, or when I moved up here.
They can hear.
And about $400 more a year than I was paying now. So,
If I can add a real quick addendum, at the meeting, it was asked about the project and how much would be saved. And again, we've been through these tapes, I don't know how many times. Exact quote, Larry, Huge maintenance savings. Sandy, each villa can bid their own maintenance contracts afterwards. Will villa quarterly assessments go down? Sandy, project would stabilize costs of villa owners, hopefully result in reduction. You know,
What did you want us to say, John? I
well,
mean,
I'm just saying,
Yeah, but
God
he,
bless you,
wait,
but
wait,
that's-
but here's the challenge, right? And I gave this analogy and I'll give it again. If you use 100 gallons of water today, right? And I'm just making numbers up that aren't real numbers, and it costs $5 a gallon, right? Then you're paying $500 for water. If after this landscape is put in, you use 50 gallons of water, if it's not that same $5, if it's $7, if it's $9 per gallon, then you're not going to have a dollar for dollar savings. And everything that we're seeing on every utility bill that we're getting is the prices are just going up and up. And not only are the individual prices going up, they're adding surcharges that weren't there before. I mean, look at your own personal residential bill, right? You might have less gas usage right now at this time of year, but your bill's probably not any lower. It's probably more than last year.
are you paying commercial rates?
No.
Yes.
Are you paying commercial rates?
It depends on what it is. Because like the landscaping, it goes by the pipe size. So if you have a 1 inch versus a 1 1/4 versus a 2 inch.
Well, when I talked to Southern Nevada Water Authority and they were saying this is going to be all one big project, blah, 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 blah. And I argued with them about it. The guy asked me, he said, how is the water billed? Is it billed to the main association or is it billed to the individual villas? And then who pays it? Is it paid by the individual villas or the main association? And as I understand it, it's billed to the individual neighborhoods and paid by them. He told me if that's the case, then there is a valid argument that these should be treated as 4 different projects. And the first 10,000 that comes out, $3.
They're working on that. That's exactly what they're working on. No, he's talking about the rebate that they should be treated as 4 different neighborhoods.
Well, one last thing.
I don't understand. But you make a point and then we tell you what we're doing and then you discount that. Okay? The point that you just made is there's 4 separate neighborhoods. There are 4 separate neighborhoods. Larry and Sandy have met with the city of Henderson on several occasions, have brought them out here, have had them walk the property to see, and have asked them to go back and grant these as separate so that we're not limited to 2 in the queue, so that we can get 4 in the queue, and that each neighborhood would be eligible for the full $1.50 rebate, both from Southern Nevada Water Authority and the $1.50 per square foot from the city of Henderson. But we can't sit here and go, hey guys, you're going to get this rebate, because they haven't responded back yet. I believe they had a meeting yesterday to discuss this specific topic. So, you know, we are working very diligently in the background to try to take advantage of any cost reduction, any rebate, any economies of scale. We don't take this lightly.
As an example, if any trees come down, the firewood associated will be sold, and the villa that gets those trees, that money will go to them. I mean, we've tried to think of every single area that we can have a savings for that villa area.
We've said this before, but it's worth repeating, that the budget was created assuming there's no project at this point, because we haven't decided. So it's possible that you could get what we call an assessment vacation or assessment holiday, where your assessment goes down for a quarter or 2 or maybe even more.
So I'm stopping because we have comments online. We have 2 or 3 minutes left. Do we have comments online, Duong? Okay.
I'm muted. Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you? Yeah, my name is Terry Cobb. I'm the owner of 2698 Grand Forks and have been since 2004. We went through the same thing about 12 years ago, where the board arbitrarily decided they're going to take out my front and backyard and my trees for all the same reasons that have been presented now. Except now there was another reason brought into the equation, and that was the Southern Nevada Water Authority. That made me think, well, the time has come to finally do this. Then as I looked into it, having talked with Kathy, our Villa rep, realizing many of the statements that were put in her initial letter were not accurate. They were definitely erroneous, misleading. She told me that when I talked to her about it, and she told me that was to help garner response from other villa owners to get their attention, to get them engaged. I thought, well, that's not a very good way of doing it, but that's okay. So then I asked her, in the interest of being a good citizen, I asked her what our water bills are. They total $2,100 a month for all 4 meters. So I did the math. We're talking about $70 per villa. Then I thought about, okay, the bigger picture. What does this really amount to? We're talking 39,000 square feet total, front, backyard, all of it. You do the math on that, that's barely enough water that you would save to water 1/3 of a football field. A pretty insignificant amount, in my opinion. And again, in the interest of being a good citizen. But that said, I thought, okay, we're going to look at the Water Authority statute and see what that says. And as I studied that and went through that and had it reviewed, it specifically exempts both front and backyards. I've heard several people say this morning the law requires the front yard. The law does not require that. It specifically exempts that. And some might say, well, this is owned by an HOA. That doesn't matter. Nevertheless, the way my lawyer reviewed it, it is specific, and even in frequently asked questions addresses the fact that they're not out to get your front or backyards in a single family home or a townhome. But more importantly, when we dealt with this about 10 to 12 years ago, at the time I was out of town somewhere, and I thought, this is not going to happen. The only reason I bought that villa was because of that grass, those trees, the overall look at that place, the overall look of that whole street. Could have bought anywhere in Sun City Anthem, but I didn't want to. I wanted that landscaping. In my mind, that really made the whole place much more attractive, much more desirable, and therefore added value. When I went down and met with the board then, I explained that to them. I said, what you're talking about could possibly devalue my property significantly. This is a major relevant event, a material event. And according to the bylaws, you cannot arbitrarily, as a board, execute a material event without the proper vote, without following the proper procedure. And that may be the reason I've heard Wendy say a few times this morning that the can has been kicked down the road ever since. And that's where I still am. You put option 1 on the table, you put option 2 on the table, and option 3 to me, and I think there are a number of people in that room and other owners there that are not in favor of doing either. Now again, I want to be a good citizen, but I'm willing to do more than just bring enough water to water 1/3 of a football field. That's ridiculous to ask us to remove all of our yards, front and back, and the trees and the shrubs to render that much savings in water. That's nothing in the scheme of things. There are other ways we can be a better citizen than that, in my opinion. So option 3 that I might like to suggest is the fact that it doesn't have to be all or none. I've heard that said this morning several times, it's all or none. I'm thinking, no, there's nothing saying it's got to be all or none. And if the board wants to execute a vote properly, I guess that's the board's prerogative. But I'm thinking you don't have to do that. There are people there in the neighborhood that are like me. They want their yards. I don't want the risk of my place being devalued. I want my yard. But at the same time, I want to recognize what Kathy wants. She told me she bought the place in spite of the yard, and that's okay. And she should have the right to take out that yard if she wants to. And she can save, I calculated, about $30 a month on her water bill if she takes it out. And she could save probably $25 or $30 a month in landscaping charges if she goes to desert landscaping. I'm not interested in that. She can take that. She can have what she wants. I can still have my yard as it is. And I'm not worried about the inconsistent look on me. I have a home in Phoenix, and it's the same way. I've got a great yard. Some of my neighbors are all desert, and all that does is make my place look better. So I'd like that to be considered as an option 3. It doesn't have to be all or none. I'm glad to hear Wendy say in the earlier meeting that has nothing to do with the Water Authority law. And I remember that specifically because I wrote the words down because I was so very glad to hear her acknowledge that, because that is exactly our conclusion. Front and backyards both are exempt for single family and or townhomes, period. That's the bottom line on it. And I think we're going to do whatever we have to do to stop this unless the proper procedure is followed. Pardon me?
I appreciate opinion, but the fact of the matter is, and Larry, please speak to this, it is mandated by the law. That is part of the.
No, ma'am, it's not. We'll go to the mat on that because it's not mandated.
It must be. It's not optional, sir. The backyard, the limited common element in the back is optional. The front and side is not optional. The housing design that you have, it has been decided by SNWA and the task force that Larry was a member of, that the front and side must, mandatory, must be removed. It's not optional.
I said, Wendy.
Okay,
fair
enough. But right now, that's what we are told.
Larry, did you have a comment about that since you said on the NITRAC board, not to put you on the spot, but?
No, I did sit on the NITRAC board, and it was a very hard decision for the 9 of us to make these decisions for a whole lot of people. The whole issue comes with the limited common area that the original NITRAC board, when we sat on, originally the limited common area for the villas, no matter where you were going to be done. That was the information we were given. That was the information we went to June 1st. June 4th actually is when the water department came back and said, guess what? We've taken a look at townhomes because there's limited common area, but it is a backyard. They are single family homes, but they don't fit in the definition of a single family home according to the SNWA on their rating. We're going to allow them to keep their backyards, but the front and side yards have to go. So that's where it went. The water department wavered. And so the information we gave you guys in the June 1st meeting was the information we had from the water department that I got sitting on the board. And 4 days later, they actually wavered and changed. So yes, the front and backyards, and we had the emails from the water department stating that yes, they need to come out. But the backyards can be under the law kept. Front and sides, excuse me, front and sides have to go.
And I understand what you're saying. You brought this up before about lobbying and maybe going to the Attorney General, and you and I spoke about it, privately after that meeting. Given what's happened since you and I spoke last, I think it's even less chance that we could lobby the legislature to change this in any way. But, never say never in life. You're right, John. Never say never. What is it that you, yes, never say never, but it is in order to pursue this, are the villa owners willing to pay for a lobbyist and willing to where's the money coming from to lobby the legislature? So this money should, I just want to clarify. So getting a lobbyist and trying to change this for the villas should be borne by the main association? Yes, that was one. Mhm. No, sir, it's based on the housing code. It's based on the, no, it's not. I've been through, no, I'm not going to stop. This has been discussed with there's a housing code and single family detached homes, single family residences are one code. And your type of building is a different code. That's right. There's many. That's right. Okay, all right, okay. Fair. Change, reversed by courts, voided by courts. I'm just going to ask one more question. If you think that, do you think that with the water crisis and the Colorado River issue and the Lake Mead issue, that they're going to change the current interpretation? Do you? You think we could lobby that? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I hear you.
So,
Well, the whole board will have to discuss that.
so we are at the conclusion. Actually, we ran over, and we appreciate all the feedback that we had from the clubhouse residents, and thank you very much.
John, it's been good. Seriously, it has.